If you have any form of social media, you might have seen videos of women in New York City going viral. These women say they have been punched in the face by random men on the street. A series of TikTok videos posted over the past few weeks showed women filming themselves after the attacks. The New York Times says women began calling city council members to inquire if the videos were part of a prank or real.
Now, here's one example. One New York City influencer, Hallie Kate, posted a video after she got punched by a man.
I was literally just walking, and a man came up and punched me in the face. Oh my God, it hurts so bad. I can't even talk. Literally, I fell to the ground, and now this giant goose egg is forming, and I'm like, oh my God.
Hallie Kate says she thinks the man punched her as she was walking on a sidewalk, looking on her phone, as if to move her out of the way.
I was just walking on the sidewalk and my head was down and I was like looking at my phone, just sending an email, but there was so much room on the sidewalk and like literally nobody was around. And I guess this man, I don't know if he punched me or if he owed me. I literally passed out. So I don't really remember, but I think he just was really mad that my head was down. He was walking a dog. So he took it upon himself to body check me and let me know.
Now, I've seen some other videos, Amber, of one woman on her way to a work dinner with a lot of coworkers. There was some rumors this is just happening to women who are walking on their own. It's happening to women who are exclusively on their cell phones, almost to say, get off of your phone and pay attention to walking. But there was one scenario. She had a huge welt on her forehead, was going to a dinner with a group of people. It was like 15 people at this table. And she said she wasn't on her phone. So what's going on here?
Right. I mean, even so, if it is exclusively targeting women who are looking down at their phone, I generally subscribe to the advice that it's not a good idea to have your nose buried in anything when you're walking outside. But that's not an appropriate way, I think, to talk about women who are obviously victims here, right? There's no reason for these men to be punching them. To justify it because they weren't paying attention is obviously inappropriate. And this is a very unfortunate trend. It reminds me of, I don't know if it was 10 years ago or so, you might remember this. There was this viral trend called the knockout game, where young men were going around and trying to punch grandmothers in the back of the head randomly to see if they could knock them out in one punch. This seems kind of similar, but a lot of these women have the same stories, which to me suggests that maybe it's just a few people who are doing this, but are continuously getting away with it. And I would definitely urge the NYPD to focus some of their resources on perhaps using street cams or any other surveillance footage to try to figure out who the perpetrators are and hold them accountable as quickly as possible, because it is just an insane thing to think that you could be minding your own business, walking down the street in a city that you pay taxes in for the government to provide public safety, and you don't have a reasonable expectation that you're not going to be attacked that day.
Right. A lot of women's comment sections, I'm sure influencers especially so, are atrocious, with a lot of what people call incels, very online men who are very lonely. There's been an epidemic of loneliness among young men in the United States. And it almost feels like this could be when making the hate comment isn't enough. What is it about this seemingly consistent violence against women who I would understand to be strangers to the perpetrator? There's something going on here that maybe the answer lies in 4chan chat rooms or deep in Reddit threads, but it has this feeling to me that it's got to be something popular either locally in New York City among a group of men, or something being sourced online. It really feels like this kind of anger towards women, because they're women. And it's usually conventionally attractive women, people who are influencers, who are, on their phones posting on TikTok afterwards. It seems like they're really targeting a specific demographic of women. Maybe it's non-native New Yorkers. A lot of non-native New Yorkers are on their phone to look at directions when they're in the city. I don't know what it could be, but it is suspicious to me that this is happening at a time when we've seen like a lot of online discourse about men who just generally are upset with the lack of attention they get from women and want to take it out, through hate comments and making violent threats. Maybe this is some form of that.
That is an interesting theory. I think judging based on some of the suspects that they have caught, it seems like this is more likely a case of mental illness being left untreated among homeless people. There was a 9-year-old who was punched at New York City Grand Central Station. The perpetrator appears to be a 30-year-old. He looks homeless. They haven't confirmed that yet, but very dirty, very unkempt, I guess you could say. And then there was another case where a Brooklyn school bus aide was sucker punched by a serial attacker that they described as also a homeless man. And I think there's been a couple of other suspects captured as well. Obviously, the problem is still going on, but to me, this is more of a case of what happens when we get rid of the ability to put people that are struggling on the street into treatment that is necessary. A lot of these people don't have the wherewithal to help themselves, and traditionally, the reason why we would say that people can't camp in public or they can't be ranting and raving on the street corner is so that we can encourage them to go into treatment programs and get the help that they need, either for drug or mental addiction or mental health issues or drug addiction. And unfortunately now it's sort of, we throw our hands up in the air and say, oh, there's nothing we can do about it. They're just going to be there and they're going to decrease the quality of life and potentially harm people. I know this was a problem outside of Union Station in Washington, D.C., where they had homeless encampments where people were constantly being harassed or assaulted by the people there, because these really are breeding grounds for people who are struggling with these mental health issues and aren't getting treatment for it. So I would say that's probably a bigger driver of this particular trend, just based on the cases that we've seen solved so far.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen reports of this happening just outside of Times Square in very populous areas of Brooklyn. It doesn't seem like it's happening in like just the seedy parts of New York City where there are homeless encampments. It seems like this is happening. You know, one was in the East Village on the way to a restaurant. So I just also the arrest that I've seen for the perpetrator against the influencer, this was not a person who was homeless. So it does seem to me that there's not a consistency there, but it does seem to me that this is a consistency of men's violence against women. And so I think we're going to need to wait till a lot more perpetrators are brought in. I'm not sure how they're going to be able to find them, other than in the cases where they've been identified through footage on surveillance cameras. Women's jaws have been broken before criminal charges have been pressed. But it is scary. You know, it's another reason why in big cities now, you know, more than the usual reasons.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I do know that there are homeless people, maybe not encampments outside of Times Square and other parts of New York that we might traditionally consider nicer, whether the Upper East Side or Manhattan more generally. So I don't think that that exempts them from being there and potentially causing trouble. Grand Central and Moynihan Train Hall have both historically had issues with homeless people hanging out there and causing trouble to travelers. New York City recently invested billions of dollars to beautify Moynihan Train Hall to try to make it nicer and have more security there to keep out people who were creating undesirable environments and unsafe environments for people who were riding either the subway or the trains to up and down the East Coast. So, I mean, that was definitely a part of it. I did find the perpetrator, you said, of the TikTok influencer who does not appear to be homeless. We'll look into it. We'll continue to track who exactly is being arrested for these and see if hopefully these decline. We'll be back with more Rising after this.